The following is brought to you by ACT, Agora Center of Thought, here on the Voluntary Virtues Network, every Saturday night, 8 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Join us as we dispel the illumination of status sophistry with the dark web of Agora's philosophy. Agora, Anarchy, Action.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Agora Underground, and we are live this 27th of June, 2015. Comrade Dick here with
Cuddy Rowe, riding shotgun.
Yes, folks. This is the Agora Underground, and as you know, we are dedicated to deciphering and breaking through and explaining Murray Rothbard's epic piece, Man, Economy, and State. For anybody interested in getting into Economics 101, Austrian economics, into understanding the foundational understanding of what is anarcho-capitalism, you need to read up on Man, Economy, and State. I wish the socialists had such a thorough and systematic breakdown of their belief system.
They can't do it.
Doesn't seem they can. So quite an eventful week, but let's get it started because we do have quite a bit to go through here and read. We were going through the different conservation, not the different, but I guess conservation laws in general and their effect on the free market. And we did discuss several points here that Rothbard brought up that were highly important to take in consideration.
Right. One of the main, I guess you could say, cruxes of what we had read last time, right, was the future, saving for the future, right? And the future's, we never get there, so we're always constantly preserving for the future, and it's keeping everyone from being able to grow, right?
Yeah, who's to say how much we need to sacrifice now for future investment? That's for each individual to decide for themselves, not for a centralized bureau to decide for them with their own earned resources.
Yeah, and exactly, and I still can't figure out how they know how to make better judgments on the ground when they're not even here in between the interaction in the market.
Yeah, they're too busy running around campaigning and getting these fake interviews all the time and fake little setups, photo ops.
Yeah,
that's what they do. So last section we left off with this paragraph here, but it's great reiterating it, and just we hope that you guys are coming along for the ride. So another error made by the conservationists is to assume a technology is fixed for all time. Human beings use what resources they have, and as technological knowledge grows, the types of usable resources multiply. If we have less timber to use than past generations, we need less too, for we have found other materials that can be used for construction or fuel. Past generations possessed an abundance of oil in the ground, but for them, oil was valueless and hence not an actual resource. Our modern advances have made it possible, right? Have taught us how to use oil and have enabled us to produce the equipment for this purpose. Our oil resources, therefore, are not fixed. They are infinitely greater than those of past generations. Artificial conservation will wastefully prolong resources beyond the time when they have become obsolete. And we ended it with that point really last week, and that's really great to reiterate, is that so long as there is a resource in abundance, we're not going to try to figure out ways to overcome that resource, find alternatives to it. If it starts to run, if the supply starts to dwindle, people are going to try to find alternatives because there's an actual incentive, economic incentive to do so. And we also talked about that this doesn't mean that we're calling for like all the trees to be cut down until we realize the value of trees and get past that. I mean, we have to take into consideration private property rights and land rights and all this into the equation as well.
Yeah. And I mean, things naturally progress on their own too. I mean, the next technology that's created helps us, create the next one, but it also gets us away from using old technologies, I guess you could say. whatever, like paper, you know, we don't need as much paper. We don't use as much paper as we used to before.
Right. Yeah, we got hard drives now.
And I mean, with the timber, I mean, you already know. I mean, it's the
We got
same.
plastics now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got hempcrete.
Yeah, totally. And this really, kind of on a side point, separates us from this. Is what separates us from animals, from the animal kingdom, is our ability to retain knowledge and pass it down in a in a communicable way, in a tangible way through language, and being able to pass that knowledge down to where people could then start off at that place where we left off, where the prior generation left off.
Yeah, we're all standing on the backs, you know, of people who came before us and created these things that we now use to create the next new things. So
Yeah,
definitely.
beautiful process.
Yeah.
So, how many writers have wept over capitalism's brutal ravaging of the American forests? Yet it is clear that the American land has had more value productive uses than timber production, and hence the land was diverted to those ends that better satisfied consumer wants. Right, just because you can cut down all the trees doesn't mean you're going to necessarily, because heck, you're going to flood the timber market and then your trees won't be worth much. So you want to use your land for what is at greatest demand at the moment, and it may or may not be trees. Like, you got to determine that.
Definitely.
So what standards can the critics set up instead? If they think too much forest has been cut down, how can they arrive at a quantitative standard to determine how much is too much? In fact, it is impossible to arrive at any such standard, just as it is impossible to arrive at any quantitative standards for market action outside of the market. Any attempt to do so must be arbitrary and unsupported by any rational principle.
It is completely irrational, you know. So
it comes into the encyclical of the Pope, right? This call back to call, to reduce and to curb back our production and the level of materialism and consumerism that is happening in the world, and what that really equates to, what that really transforms into, is a message of reduced standards of living for everybody, is what they're essentially calling for. And they get to set the arbitrary standard. Oh, you can only use so much carbon credits or whatever a year for each person. They set the standard,
and they get unlimited. They get unlimited.
They're always above the standard, isn't it? Right?
Yeah. They get to, it's government 101, right? They get to do magical things that we can't do. They get to be above whatever their ethics are, or whatever they claim that are, ethical for us.
Their laws and codes and regulations. Yeah. Yep. Emperor's got no clothes.
No, not at all. It's completely arbitrary.
Yeah, it really is. So America has been the prime home of conservation laws, particularly on behalf of its public domain. Under a purely free enterprise system, there would be no such thing as a governmentally owned public domain. Land would simply remain unowned until it first came into use, after which it would be owned by the first user and his heirs, or assigns, right? The person he assigns it to, he gives it to.
Passes it down to, yeah.
Right. And here, it's also important to note that there is a provision here, a clause here, for abandoned land and property, which has been abandoned for so long and no one's really claimed it as far as an heir or an acquaintance, an associate. Then it's back up for grabs, but you do have to set a certain amount you have to figure out a reasonable time for that.
So like if somebody leaves a bunch of their property on your property, and after like so long, like,
right,
it's like, were you ever going to come back? I mean, it's burdening me. It's eventually to store it. So at what point does it become my property?
Right.
Or I mean, is it not theirs anymore? You know what I'm saying? So, we all, I mean, there's I guess there's legitimacy to I guess that's why you have contracts, right?
Oh yeah, for so long, or
yeah. I mean, if you don't want to lose control of all your stuff, or if you're putting it in the hands of someone else, you better have some kind of contract or some kind of deal in writing.
Yeah, and with and some things don't necessarily have to be written down, right?
No,
I mean,
yeah.
if you right, I mean, if I don't
Oh
know,
yeah.
it's a
Like
given that if you die off and you have no will, well, I mean, your stuff should go to your closest significant other, right? Just because you didn't have a will that said, oh, it's
yeah,
doesn't mean
doesn't mean the state gets it,
yeah, exactly,
because
exactly,
that's exactly what the state would like.
right. You got to have your stamped, rubber stamped
Mm-hmm.
little piece of paper that the state, you paid your dues for, where they get to say, okay, you get to keep some of your stuff after you die.
And
Your
that
family
just
does.
recently happened to me. One of my family members died and a bunch of stuff was left back. And without the state being involved, each party, worked it out. Like, okay, we're gonna agree to do this and do that, and divide the property
Yeah, that's good.
evenly, and work things out. And I told them too, before they started getting into that, you don't want the state involved. They'll take half everything you got.
Oh,
Both of
yeah.
y'all won't have anything, so you might as well just be nice and work it out.
Cut
And
your pie now.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we all know too, I mean, property and things, they don't, it's not the solution to things. Is just, I don't know, it's not a fix, having a bunch of arbitrary, just stuff.
Oh, you're saying for a loss and all that?
Yeah, it's just, yeah, just
People, yeah, a lot of families get like
fight.
that.
They fight. They
Yeah.
destroy the whole family over stuff, somebody else's
Inheritance.
belongings.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
man, I don't,
Really?
yeah, it's
Rather just keep it
yeah,
keep it
it's-
with mine.
yeah, yeah. It's like, oh, just take it then if you want to be,
Yeah, that's gonna be that big of a deal.
yeah, you're gonna
Yeah.
cry and fight and destroy, a family over that or whatever relationships. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah,
I digress.
And hey, I guess that's the problem with the market, isn't it? Because it's funny how socialists always want to blame the market for
That's not a-
for the selfish, or the, I'm sorry, not the selfish. That
Yeah.
was the wrong term to use, but the unobtained, the unearned selfishness that a lot of people try to give themselves. They try to blame the market for it instead of just blaming,
People,
that,
humans.
they don't have a right estimation of things.
Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, that's an important side note to make of as far as abandoned property, because a lot of people get mad at anarcho-capitalists here because we do seem kind of extreme proprietarians where, oh, once I homestead something, it's mine forever type of mentality. Well, no, there is also clauses in there for abandonment. So let's not, let's not jump the gun here. It just wasn't mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. We're not for no rules.
Yeah.
Just for no authority. No rulers over us.
Yes, sir.
Definitely.
So the consequences of government ownership of the public domain will be further explored below. Here we may state a few of them. When the government owns the land and permits private individuals to use it freely, the result is indeed a wasteful exploitation of the resource. More factors are employed to use up the resource than on the free market, since the only gains to the user are immediate. And if they wait, other users will deplete the limited resource.
Isn't that kind of like the Bundy Ranch little thing? He was like having his cows graze on some government land.
Yeah, we'll go graze on their land instead of grazing on my land. Save that green grass for my land until y'all come back. And yeah, it makes sense. I mean, this is the whole point, ladies and gentlemen. When we give land up to like national parks or land designated federally owned or UN owned nowadays, where no humans are allowed to trespass and live and whatnot, or cut down a tree. God forbid you cut down a tree, because they'll lock you up for the rest of your life there. Right? I mean, if you cut down a tree there, like the point is that government then licenses chunks of land out to logging companies, and logging companies don't own that land. So what is the natural instinct of these logging companies? Is they're going to go in there and cut as much as they can and get the heck out, because they only paid for a month permit, 2-month permit, or whatever.
Yeah, so they got to get their raping on.
That's
or
right.
Whatever, they've got to go full blast. I mean, it's in you've got a limited time. You better just go and get as much as you can, right?
Now, if you own the land, what would be your
to conserve? To
plant some
to
more,
be able
right?
to keep producing for myself. Because how am I going to sustain when I just cut everything down and then everything's gone? And what am I going to live off after that? I mean, if my business is trees or something like you're saying, if I cut down all the trees, then what trees am I going to sell? So it's in my best interest to keep a balance in between.
Keep replenishing them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and that's that would be a rightfully a good selfish, right? A healthy form of selfishness where you're looking for your own long-term self-interest for yours and you and yours.
Yeah. Yep.
So free use of governmentally owned resources truly inaugurates a war of all against all, as more and more users eager for the free bargain attempt to exploit the scarce resource. To have a scarce resource and to make everyone believe, because of the free gift of use, that its supply is unlimited, causes overuse of the resource, favoritism, figurative queuing up, etc. So this brings in a whole bunch of distortions into the market when you allow for this overstimulated reaping, right, of the forest, because people are just getting licensed for the moment. They're being licensed that land for the moment. And it's funny, it's hilarious that all these laws are for conservation. When you start to consider, what laws are prohibiting logging companies from actually owning land, it's these environmentalist, land grabbing Greenpeace, organizations that are supposedly trying to protect the environment. But hey, it sounds like big business got their hand in there too,
And so what are they really doing? They're really subsidizing the raping of the land.
Big business.
Yeah.
Big surprise, right?
No.
Not really.
No, not really. But I mean, it's just it's the nature of the beast. Really is.
Man.
Yeah.
Raping and pillaging.
Yep. But they do it under the guise, right, of like,
yeah, exactly, of what's good. I mean, it's for the children,
yeah,
right? I mean,
for the
kids,
future, for the
future.
kids, yeah, because the kids and everything,
right?
But they don't like I said right last time, they're conserving the debt for the future. They're making sure we have some debt. We don't want to get rid of the debt right now. We got to make sure we have some for the future.
Can't get rid of all slavery.
Hey, they're consistent in their ethics.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't keep it hidden from us. You can't say they've tricked us. I mean, they've been pretty blatant about their philosophies the whole time. So a striking example was the Western grazing lands in the latter half of the 19th century. The government prevented cattlemen, here we go, Bundy Ranch, cattlemen from owning the land and fencing it in, and insisted it be kept as open range owned by the government. BLM, right?
Yeah.
The result was excessive use of the range, and its ultimately, depletion. It led to the depletion of the land, of the government land. Go graze on the government land. Don't graze on our land.
Yeah. It's the proof's in the pudding, right?
Yeah. Another example is the rapid depletion of fisheries. Since no one is permitted to own any segment of the sea or lake or river, no one sees any sense in preserving the value of the resource that's in that area, in the sea, right? As each is benefited only by rapid use in advance of its competitors. The more I grab before everybody else, the better for me. So overfishing happens because no one owns segments of the sea. People could technically own square knots of whatever, square kilometers of sea.
Yeah. That'd be
not land, I guess, seawater or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's land under it.
True.
So
yeah, so interesting.
Yeah, why can't you own land because it's underwater? That's hilarious. That's another arbitrary.
Doesn't it go back to the Poseidon clause with the commerce and the trade?
Poseidon clause, boy, you blowing me away. What?
Over trade over waters, right? You got the waters, and you got so land over water over land. It would be under international commerce laws and the rule of Poseidon.
We can't own the land under the water, but the government can.
Exactly.
Yeah, international waters. You got to go out so far, right, on those gambling boats, right, till it's like it's not government waters anymore, so you can gamble. That's hilarious. Yeah, there it goes again. They can do things that we can't magically. It's okay for them to own the land under the water, but we can't.
Oh yeah. They own the airwaves. We can't. Yeah.
Yeah, FCC, right?
Yeah. Yes, sir. So yeah.
Catch me cussing.
You want to know? You don't want to know why dolphins and fish are becoming overfished, overgrazed, overpoached? It's because of this stuff. It's because essentially the tragedy of commons. When everyone owns a piece of land or a piece of the sea, everyone's going to dump their trash and fish as much as they can there and not give a hoot.
Yeah.
Right, because no one's property. Hey, it's the government's property.
Who cares? No, yeah. There's no one to take care of it because there's no incentive. It's not theirs.
It's like these points are so crucial. People just brush them aside, and it's like they're like main, bullet points. Tragedy of commons like this versus privatizing everything. It's that dichotomy, and it's one or the other, folks. You can't have quasi public, quasi, private, public property rights. Like you can't have that. I mean, it's inconsistent. It's not only that, but it might as well just be public, right? I mean, if they're going to tell you how to use it, if they're going to regulate your property and tell you what you can do with it, who you can trade it to, how you can trade it.
It's basically like you're renting it.
Yeah.
And there's like certain standards or whatever, certain limits to what you can do with it.
Oh yeah. Limited everything. So leasing is hardly a superior form of land use. If the government owns the land and leases it to grazers or timber users, once again, there is no incentive for the lease to preserve the value of the resource, since he or she does not own it. It is to his best interest as a leasee to use the resource as intensively as possible in the present. Hence, leasing also depletes natural resources excessively at a higher rate than it should, right?
Yeah.
This reminds me of the difference between democracy and a king. Politicians that are voted in are only there for 4 years. It's like they're renting the house for 4 to 8 years.
And so they run it up. They run it up. Look what's going on. Look, because
they're out of there, right? And then they're no longer accountable. Hey, how was that? Hey, I'm out of there.
Oh yeah, and then when the new guy gets in, he inherited what the guy before ran it up, so he just keeps running it up and blames it on the guy before him. Well, he already ran it up, and I gotta keep going because he already started going off the cliff. So we're just gonna keep going off.
Yeah, they make more money coming out, oddly enough, interestingly enough, than they do coming in.
Yeah.
That tells you how many connections they made, how many backs they scratched, how many.
Oh yeah, I forget what Michelle Obama's worth now, like something ridiculous. It's
Yep.
Yeah, working for the people, right? serving the people.
Off the people, yeah.
Yeah.
So in contrast to all this, leasing and licensing land, if private individuals were to own all the lands and resources, it would be the owner's interest to maximize the present value of each resource. Excessive depletion of the resource would lower its capital value on the market. Against the preservation of capital value of the resource as a whole, the resource owner balances the income to the presently obtained form from its use. So against the preservation of capital value of the resource as a whole, the resource owner balances the income to be presently obtained from its use. So yeah, he wants to find the right balance, right? I mean, you don't want to overcut and have extra lumber chilling, and you also don't want to undercut. You want to go with what the demand is telling you and play it out, play it out that way.
Yeah, you wanna basically go with the market's demands.
And if you own it, think long term, like we've been bringing up. I mean, this is what encourages people to take care of their stuff.
Yeah,
when you actually own it. The balance is decided, ceteris paribus, by the time preference and the other preferences of the market. So yeah, by catalytics, right? By supply and demand, by time preferences. So if private individuals can only use but not own the land, the balance is destroyed, and the government has provided an impetus to excessive present use. So he's just pretty much re-summing up what he's been saying. You know, this is the beauty of owning something. You own a home. If you're a king of a nation, people know where you live and you're responsible for that nation for the rest of your life. So if you mess up, people are going to come looking for you and your family to hang you and to burn you at the stake. Unlike with politicians nowadays, where
They're out in 4 years,
every 4 8 years,
it gets passed on. The buck gets passed,
and they go over to Switzerland or something, or Costa Rica.
Yeah.
So
right.
So this is good stuff right here. This is good stuff. For some basics for basics in economics for all you folks out there. That it seems like the Pope, you know, with all his degrees and all his big flatteries and presumptuous titles, can't seem to get basic economics. I don't get it. He's supposed to be God on earth, and this guy doesn't.
It's because he has those degrees and those titles that he can just say whatever, and people just eat it up. You know, it's my arbitrary paper.
Yeah.
That says I'm a intellect or whatever.
Right. I regurgitated what my professor taught me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Lord. All right. And supposedly, you know, I mean by that is he claims to be. I don't give credence to those supposedness.
Yeah.
So not only is the announced aim of conservation laws to aid the future at the expense of the present illegitimate and the arguments in favor of it invalid, but compulsory conservation would not achieve even this goal. It doesn't even achieve what it wants to achieve, like most economic intervention. The future is already provided for through present savings and investment. Conservation laws will indeed coerce greater investment in natural resources, using other resources to maintain renewable resources and forcing a greater inventory of stock and depletable resources. Wow, that's some heavy stuff right there. So the future is already provided for by present saving, investment, and technological advancements. The future is being guaranteed for, because if everyone owns their property,
how did we get to where we're at now?
Yeah. I mean, if you own your property, you're not going to plan for the future. I mean, basically, is what people, you know, the government tries to insinuate by, you know, relegating property to us.
They totally just try to reverse reality. I mean,
so that's already taken care of. The future is taken care of by people owning today.
Yeah.
Period. So conservation laws will indeed coerce greater investment in natural resources, using other resources to maintain renewable resources and forcing a greater inventory of stock and depletable resources. So people are going to malinvest in whatever thing that they're trying to conserve. People are going to have to switch their money to something else, and that's just all malinvestment. You know, you're distorting with the progress of society, the spontaneous order of nature.
Yeah, of even just nature.
Yeah,
because it's what's natural. It's what's natural. They're doing something that's completely unnatural, impeding the voluntary interactions between everybody in the market.
Yeah, for as much as they claim to be evolutionists, right, and believing in spontaneous order, essentially,
but they
really want to be that intelligent designer that plans the economy, you know, to every nth degree. Like,
they can't let it,
evolve
and grow and progress.
They can't. Control freaks.
But government can evolve and grow and progress.
That's what you call, you know, that's what we want to call it. I mean, it's more akin to mutating. It's more
I know. It is definitely mutating. It's a cancer, and it's just getting bigger. It's just it's getting bigger.
Yeah. Malignant.
Definitely. No, not non-malignant. Cancerous. Malignant's like, or benign. Yeah, no, it's malignant. Yeah, there you go. I was getting it twisted.
Benign.
Benign is like it's nothing. It's,
passive.
Malignant is like, oh yeah,
he's on the rush. He's on the aggressive. He's on the run.
Yeah.
He's I forgot.
No, yeah.
I was about to say some messed up stuff, man.
Oh, man.
All right. That's enough. Enough with the social commentary jokes and the what do you call it? The pop culture jokes, and
that's whatever. Hey, I'm down, man. Whatever, tear them up.
But total investment is determined by the time preference of individuals, and these will not have changed. Duh, right? Everyone sets their own benefits. How quickly you want to reap what you're sowing, or how long you want to wait, and that's up for people to decide. Conservation laws then do not really increase total provisions for the future. They merely shift investment from capital goods, buildings, etc., to natural resources. They thereby impose an inefficient and distorted investment pattern on the economy. Right, but just because you're told you can't use this, so much lumber, you can only use so much, and you can't use past that amount. We're going to stop, so we're not going to increase the use of other resources in order to make up for the fact that
you're going to have to.
So there's that malinvestment again. Resources that we could have been using for the future or using for something else more productive now have to be used because we're barred from using what we're using at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's pretty much the same thing we were talking about, I guess last week. I mean,
this is still
definitely
conservation. Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, yeah, it's just it's the same old story. But they, they rely on everybody's feelings, right? To believe in this. They play, they tug on your heartstrings to try to get you to go with what's not, to get you to go against the grain with against nature and natural spontaneous order and interaction. The way things are supposed to work.
I like that. They're the ones that are against the grain, not us.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are going against nature.
They are.
Yeah.
But they use the guise of, we've got to go with nature.
Yeah, like they're the order. Like they're the source of order when they're the source of chaos.
Yes.
I like that.
They are.
That's why at the beginning of the show, I had my sister say, the illumination of false sophistries, because they think it's illumination. They say it's that light of enlightenment or whatever.
But
and ours is considered like a dark, like the evil forces, but it's really not. It's a dark philosophy because it awakens you to the true self, the true realizations.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, yeah, they flip everything. They as so below, as so above, as so below. It's they turn everything upside down. It's really quite interesting once you study it and you just keep seeing the inversion of reality, right, or of what's natural.
And yeah, no, definitely could. And it's sad that we allow them to do these inversions. It's sad because think about it. They can sign laws or papers all day. If no one followed it, who gives a shit?
Yeah. The paper, the fact that they signed or pushed the button does nothing. Yeah, it's not until the people start to go along and believe that they have the authority.
Right. That's what we fear. It's not their right, not their threats or their laws or their standing armies. It's the fact that people believe in their rhetoric. People believe in the cause.
People follow it and enforce it and back it up. And it'll eat all of them. All of them alive with it. It's everybody is obsolete to it. It's a
obsolete man.
Yeah, and every it's an insatiable. It's a machine, right, with a bottomless stomach. It's hungry forever. It's just never gonna
the bottomless pit.
Yeah,
of the appetite of the state.
Yeah, really is. It's never satisfied.
Bloodlust.
Yes.
Oh man,
it's like we need to let it suck our blood out until it gets so fat it just turns over and dies. It pops. That's gonna be the death of the state when it sucks up everything so much, and then they're just so decadent. They just have brain aneurysms from doing mountains of cocaine or something. I don't know.
This is why I love Calkins agorism. It's if we all just started using the gray and black market, even for just a couple of years, we would choke out the state. No one would non-compliance to their arbitrary laws. We would choke it out, and then after that we can have there is no black and gray market anymore. It's just the market. It's just the agora. We can go back to major, big ass firms essentially.
What will happen to our black and gray flag though, Rick? We won't have it anymore. That's why it's the anti-flag. You know what I'm saying? Because it'll cease to exist once once government does. Kind of.
Oh yeah, the revolution, the end all revolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
It is. It is.
It's awesome.
It is. And it's a vacation, ladies and gentlemen. And by that it's vacate the state, not occupying the state, which a lot of commies
Occupy the Democrats.
Yeah, which a lot of commies and conservatives tend to think that's the solution to things, is occupying the Senate or occupying Congress.
Occupy the evil machine.
Yeah.
It's an evil machine. Its only job is do evil.
Occupy power.
Yeah. Occupy coercion. Occupy force. Occupy death. Occupy murder. Occupy slavery. You can't occupy slavery, dumbass.
Occupy, anti-contractualization, right? Because we got a constitution that everyone is forced into now that I didn't sign.
Let's be consistent.
Yeah. I thought we believed in contracts here. I thought we believed in the free market here.
Oh, but we're all bound by one that none of us signed. We're all forced on by. It's all forced on us by birth, because we were born here in these
through the waters of Poseidon.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Through the birth canal.
That lovely canal.
The woman's water broke.
Yeah.
In the canal.
The Nile.
Yeah.
So, given the nature and consequences of conservation laws, why should anyone advocate this legislation? Conservation laws, we must note, have a very practical aspect. They restrict production. An example, the use of resource by force, and thereby create a monopolistic privilege, which leads to a restrictionist price to owners of this resource or of substitutes for it. Interesting. Conservation laws can be more effective monopolizers than tariffs because, as we have seen, tariffs permit new entry and unlimited production by domestic competitors, whereas conservation laws, on the other hand, serve to cartelize a land factor and absolutely restrict production, thereby helping to ensure permanent and continuing monopoly gains for the owner. So could it be, ladies and gentlemen, as Cut and I alluded to earlier, could it be that big ag and big lumber were the ones behind conservation laws in order to guarantee that they're the ones that get to control the market? Yet another barrier to entry for anybody that wants to get in and compete with them. Yet another one.
And it's the only way that can happen, right, is with government.
Because you think the crony companies, crony corporations are held to these conservation laws? Heck no. They have all their lawyers finding loopholes to every single law all the time. They write the laws. They write the loopholes in the laws.
Oh yeah,
legislative.
That's how they can get away with it.
Yeah,
because they know what they're. Well, we all know this. I mean,
they submitted the laws. They know.
But also, the words don't even mean what they mean in English. They have a whole nother law dictionary where you have to read that to figure out what they're even saying. And of course, they know because
they wrote.
Yeah. They know the language. They know the language. It's like speaking a completely different language, even though the words are written in English. I mean, it seems to be English. Spelt the same. It's pronounced the same.
Yeah, apparently individual
or citizen or whatever or anything. Person. Yeah. You start going.
These things don't mean possession.
Everyone thinks they drive every day, but really they're traveling,
Yeah.
It's slick jargon.
Slick jargon, and we read about that in the French Revolution, didn't we? Cut how in France it was, the nobles were writing the laws along with the clergy and along with them, the king, the monarchy, and they had their loopholes in there for the rich and the that could, the people that could pay for these, life career lawyers. Essentially,
yeah.
And whereas the poor man, hey, guess what? Hey, you're just following through, and you see it every time you get processed, or you go to court, or you have to be processed in the count.
When I go to last time I went to court for a traffic quote unquote violation, I saw a whole bunch of minorities
who lower income people
were getting taken advantage of.
Yep.
Completely taken advantage of. They couldn't even, some of them couldn't even speak English, so I mean, not
They're a little bit more lenient on foreigners than they
but
and then on American poor, but nonetheless
they were still getting the money,
exactly
and keeping them tied up in the papers, and they were still getting the money. And I was just like, these people don't even have any money for your silly arbitrary didn't have this sticker or whatever it was, it's I just saw them taking advantage of them, and I felt bad for them too. I mean,
you're right, Cut. If you can afford a lawyer that knows how to go around the laws, knows where the tunnels and the underground,
in other words, knows how to fight, knows how to throw punches with the other boxer. I mean, if you don't know how to fight with the other, that's basically what it is a fight. You have to. You've got to find someone else who can, it's like, you don't know all the moves in UFC. You try to go be a UFC fighter, you're going to get beat to a pulp. You don't know all those moves.
No, but it's a system that's put in place to favor those that are well connected, or those that have to pay for connections. And it creates this political class and this sub-political class that just lives off of the political process, which is essentially the transgression of property rights. That's all they live off of. Constantly. So it's ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. Ridiculous what we're seeing. And as Rothbard points out here, it seems like big business is the one behind these conservation laws, because again, we know that big business isn't held to the same standards as small business.
And it's really like not capitalism it's business tied in with government.
Right.
So, I mean,
there could be a big enterprise that came about through.
But there's no way they're going to have a monopoly on anything.
No. Monopolies are a product of the state. We've covered that here in several sections before this. So,
just got to keep going there, though.
There
we go.
There's
that word right there.
So these monopolistic gains, of course, will tend to be capitalized into an increase in the capital value of the land. The person who later buys the monopolized factor then will simply earn the going rate of interest on his investment, even though the monopoly gain will be included in his earnings. That was a little bit thicker than I could pretty much comprehend on that. So these monopoly gains, of course, will tend to be capitalized into an increase in the capital value of the land. Okay, so the fact that
there is only one. See, since it makes it a rarity. It makes it a rarity because one person owns it, and so you have to basically.
So there's more value in the land.
Yeah.
Right, because
there's a monopoly on it.
Yeah, there's less supply because you're allowed to cut less.
It's like the diamonds, right? All the diamonds in the world. There's a ton of them. They're really worth nothing because there's so many of them. But one guy or one entity owns most of them. So that therefore makes them.
They control the supply.
They control the supply and demand. Yes.
Yeah,
and it creates an artificial.
And as we've seen, the best method of controlling supply and demand is through government.
Yep.
It costs a lot of money to buy up all the resources.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, who could do it with a free market?
Yeah, it's a lot easier when you have state edicts and state enforcers to help you out. Yeah. I don't know why people can't grasp that.
Licenses and whatever. Grants.
So it makes sense, right? You're going to have your land increase because you have trees on it, and since there's a tree conservation laws, logging conservation laws, well then guess what? You just increase the value of your land because there's conservation laws for those trees now. So it benefits them. The person who later buys the monopolized factor then will simply earn the going rate of interest on his investment, even though the monopoly gain will be included in his earnings.
You know what's interesting? I was just thinking right now. My family has a ranch, and I remember, if I'm not wrong, I remember that there was some kind of license or something we had to get just to cut the cedar trees on the land, like to clear it up, like because we have cattle and stuff, and so we need room for them to graze, and then we like to hunt on it, so we need room to see or whatever. And we're over there. We're over there. Of course, we cut the trees down anyway or whatever. They can't see us. We're not. We're still gonna like break their arbitrary mumbo jumbo laws.
Right.
But it was just hilarious to think that, oh, on my land, I should be able to do what I want with it, but I have to get some license to clear the land.
Oh,
The land?
right. What? For real? Your
So-
own land, brother.
Yeah. Silly. My
Your-
bad.
No.
But
I'm sorry. I was looking for pictures here.
That just it just all started kind of clicking. I'm like, yeah, that's silly. It's silly. It's I was making my land better and worth more by cutting those trees, and it was
concentrating.
I wasn't cutting all the trees.
Right.
I'm only cutting the ones that are grow like weeds.
I'm sure. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you concentrated the trees together as far as when they were already together. Why cut down through a forest when you can just cut down the random ones that distort the open plain, the open field,
open areas. Yeah, exactly. That's all we were doing.
Yeah,
and those cedar trees, they grow like
weeds.
Yeah, like exactly like weeds. And yeah, we of
Like
course
hemp.
we wouldn't cut down one oak tree. Keep all of them. But yeah, it's just like picking weeds out the garden. You can't. Where does it?
Yeah, I thought I owned this.
If you're gonna stay consistent, I mean, everybody can't pick the weeds out their grass in the front yard, then, or what? I mean,
can't mow your yard without a permit.
Yeah, what?
Yeah,
Let's be consistent. Go all the way.
Yeah. You gotta get a
tree.
special.
How big does the tree have to be to where it's either I don't know what you call it before it's a tree. It's a little baby, a shrub or something. Yeah, like how tall does it have to be?
You got to be this tall to ride the ride
before it's a tree, and then
yeah, ridiculous. So ridiculous here. So Rothbard ends it by saying basically the person who buys this monopolized factor, in this case timber, in our example, or timber, because here comes the limber,
timber,
the lumber.
Leo, is there?
So basically, when they buy into it, they're going to gain on the interest rate of the investment. So whatever the time preference is, and plus the monopolist gain included in the earnings. So here Rothbard just being, just reiterating the fact that those are, instead of just earning this simply the interest, which is what is the market would determine, just interest on the investment, which is what everyone deserves, you're also going to be earning the monopolistic privilege that's included in these earnings if you have conservation laws. It reminds me of the farmers back in the day that were calling for the government to protect them, from foreign competition. And this is the way it starts: is that hey, we got to protect our workers. We got to protect the national industry.
Workers of the
workers
world
unite. Workers unite.
Where's my hammer? Where's my sickle?
Yeah. That's funny.
Yes, sir. Hey, it's true though. It's true. It's true.
It's true. It's true.
It's socialism, right?
It is, my friend. The negation of property rights, right? The main foundation. If they had a book with systematic foundational, introduction to their philosophy,
nobody owns anything.
Yeah, that would be the tenet number one.
The collective, the state owns it.
Yeah, your representatives, whoever they might be at the moment,
and it's in their best interest to make sure that everything's provided for you efficiently.
Your superiors, your union leaders. So conservation laws, therefore, must also be looked upon as grants of monopolistic privilege, as we've outlined right here before. One outstanding example is the American government's policy since the end of the 19th century of reserving vast tracts of the public domain, an example, the government's land holdings. Reserving means that the government keeps land under its ownership and abandons its earlier policy of keeping the domain open for homesteading by private owners. So forests in particular have been reserved ostensibly for the purpose of conservation. What is the effect of withholding huge tracts of timberland from production? It is to confer a monopolistic privilege and therefore a restrictionist price on competing private lands and on competing timber. I mean, all this is very crucial. I mean, it's like Milton Friedman said, that when you put those economic goggles on and you look at the situation of cartels, the government, and the war on drugs, when you're looking at it strictly through economic eyes, you realize that the government is actually protecting the cartels because of their war on drugs. That is the economic reality of it.
It's their incentive to keep the war on drugs going because they're getting money off the war on drugs. So they don't really want it to end because there goes their honeypot.
They're getting money. They're giving a monopoly to the cartels.
Definitely, because they
don't bust the cartels. They
no.
They bust the little man.
They could have drone striked them suckers into oblivion a long time ago if they really wanted to.
Sinaloa, yeah, that Sinaloa cartel and all them, yeah.
Yeah, all of them. I don't want to say any too many of their names. I don't want them to come get me, but
ISIS.
ISIL. It's ISIL now, bro.
Come and get us. Come and get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very true. It's very true. So we got to put those economic glasses on, ladies and gentlemen, and not be coerced and tricked by the fields, the Department of Fields,
Yeah,
legislating.
Right. You already know, man. We're gonna be left with nothing left to eat if we're gonna make a law about everybody's fields.
Sure as heck heading that way.
Yes, sir.
So we have seen that limiting the labor supply confers a restrictionist wage on the privileged workers, while the workers pushed out by the union wage rates or by license or immigration laws must find lower paying and less value productive jobs elsewhere. We've seen that. We talked about immigration. We talked about licenses. We talked about, unions, immigration licenses, minimum wage. We talked about all these things and how they affect the distortion of workers. Same thing with these conservation laws. A monopoly of quasi-monopoly privilege for the production of capital or consumer goods, on the other hand, may or may not confer a monopoly price, depending on the configuration of the demand curves for the individual firms, as well as their costs. That's a side point, really. I mean, it's just a side note. I don't know why he really threw that in there. He's just making a note that, I guess, a note here that, I guess, production and consumer goods, a privilege may not confer monopoly price, depending on the demand curves for the individual firm and their costs. So that's interesting. I'm looking at that. I guess an example of that would be kind of oil. I don't know. Can OPEC control really the price of oil?
That's like one of those like quasi monopolies, right?
Yeah. That's a side note. I don't know why Rothbard threw that in there. He
just to put a side note in there.
Yeah, I guess. Since a firm can contract or expand its supply at will, right? It sets its supply with the knowledge that lowering output to achieve a monopoly price must also lower the total amount of goods sold. Right? So the laborer need bother with no such considerations aside from negligible variations in demand for each laborer's total hours of service. What about the privileged landowners? Will he achieve a definite restrictionist or a possible monopoly price? A prime characteristic of a piece of land is that it cannot be increased by labor. If it is augmentable, then it is a capital good, not land. The same, in fact, applies to labor, which in all but long periods of time can be regarded as fixed in its total supply, since labor in its totality cannot be increased, except as we have noted in regard to hours of work per day, or I guess technology, which he also noted, but land can't be increased, labor can't be increased.
But China's working on increasing land right now. They're building islands. They've got Dubai too. I don't know. That might, I don't know. Maybe because you are taking land from one land and putting it over here, maybe it's not necessarily increasing because it's already over there.
Because you made the where you
there's only so much dirt on the earth. You can't make more dirt.
And you made the where you're digging out uninhabitable because you're digging out a big hole.
Yeah.
Right, to fill up
some other. Exactly. So maybe okay. And he might have thought of that.
And this is in the 60s too, before
they're doing that. But still, even though it's almost like I'm going back on like, okay, well, the land still isn't increasing. I mean, you might have spread it out, but I mean, it was maybe like this, and then you made it, maybe it was tall, and
kind of like the matter or energy cannot be created or destroyed type of laws, quantum laws, or
It's like
Yeah.
shit just exists, bro.
Yeah.
And you can't make more shit that's not there just exists. Like, I don't know. It's like always like the same amount of shit like everywhere, no matter what form it takes. You can't really increase it. Or can you? Getting into some crazy shit.
So talk about some philosophy.
Yeah, right. Fucking brain's gonna explode.
So government restriction on labor supply, child labor laws, for example, or immigration barriers, etc., therefore confers a restrictionist wage increase on the workers remaining. This is a way to get privilege, right, from the workers that remain. They don't have to compete against children, and they don't have to compete against immigrants that are willing to work for cheaper, right? So the reason you would want immigration laws or child labor laws is to make sure that your pay stays high.
So
And
kids should be allowed to work, right?
They should be allowed to work.
Not
right?
forced to.
Not forced to, no.
Allowed to if they want to.
If they want to, what's the big deal with that?
They work on farms all the time. They work in the family.
Yeah.
They do the dishes.
Well, that's why they want to promote this whole idea of, oh, your kids are owned by the family. You
Oh,
know,
yeah,
not private property.
They're owned by the community.
By the community, yeah, this and that.
Community raises the kids. Ask Snoop Dogg. He's down. He's like, yeah, man, the hood raised me, not my mama. Man, your mama gonna come through that TV and slap you, boy.
Or like,
that's what's wrong with you. That's what's wrong with you.
Yeah, Snoop, we can tell, Snoop. We can tell.
We can tell the hood raised you.
Don't want to hook up with Jenner?
Yeah. Oh, no. That was Dennis Rodman. But
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Fine.
Now that would be hilarious, boy. Snoop with Jenner. I just heard.
Now we're just talking smack. Hearsay.
What? Starting rumors now.
Hey, we only get like 20 views a week, so it's not a big deal. You know,
it's okay. The word grows exponentially.
We get a couple thousand on our show, though. You know, it's the Wednesday show.
Okay.
So yeah, Truth Exposed. Yeah, a couple thousand.
So we'll just repeat it there. We'll repeat it there.
Yeah, we'll continue the rumor there. Sounds good. Take note.
Take note. Definitely. It's okay, man. It's okay.
Oh, I guess it's okay. Anyway, hey,
it's
love
okay.
and let love, right? Live and let live. Die and let die. So. Let it be, right? Let it be. So capital or consumer goods can be increased or decreased so that privileged firms must take their demand curves into account. Land, on the other hand, cannot be increased. Restriction on the supply of land, therefore, also confers a restriction of price of land above the free market price. The same is true for depleting natural resources, which cannot have their supply increased and are therefore considered part of the land. If the government forces land or natural resources out of the market, therefore, it inevitably lowers the supply available on the market and just as inevitably confers a monopoly gain and a restrictionist price on the remaining landowners or resources owners. We've talked about this. So, yeah, I mean, great way to get your prices up, make more money. In addition to all of their other effects, conservation laws force labor to abandon good lands and instead cultivate the remaining submarginal lands. This coerced shift lowers the marginal productivity of labor and consequently reduces the general standard of living as a whole. Boom. Killer again.
Ooh, kill him.
Gotta love this Roth bid.
Ooh, kill him.
Gotta love it.
Yeah, no, definitely. It destroys the beast instantly, man. It's a hot knife through butter. Boy, ooh, kill him.
Through that margarine, right? Not even real butter.
Yeah. Margarine.
Not even real cream.
Yeah, not even. Through that BS.
Yep. Well, quite an episode, folks. We do appreciate you guys riding along with us throughout all that. And we are going to be back next week to break down, finish up, wrap up the conservation laws. And, can the papal encyclical on climate change, can this push by the UN and the World Bank to control the resources and control everything be substantiated by reason and logic and common economics? And it seems like it's not really
feasible, not possible.
Yeah, not really.
That's why they can't
matching
have
the test.
They don't want people to be able to think for themselves. They're gonna figure that dumb shit out.
Yeah. So until next week, folks, we hope that that you have a prosperous week, one in productive affairs, one in the growth of knowledge, in the expansion of your heart and your
Exercise your gray and black market. Your love for the gray and black market.
Yeah.
Don't just preach anarchy, voluntarism, agorism. Actually live it. Participate in some selling some things without paying taxes, and.
Sandwiches, tacos, food,
Yeah,
bottled water, whatever.
textiles, anything.
Yeah, for those with trades, right? Building websites, plumbing work, handyman work, electrical work. I mean, all this stuff is vast amounts of ways to teaching languages, teaching musical instruments. So many ways, car repair work. I mean, so many ways to freaking
Yeah.
make money on the gray. So until next week, folks, we hope you keep choking out the state,
Strangling them out.
It's been a pleasure. Comrade Dick here with
Cuddy Rowe.
And this has been the Agora Underground, folks. So we do appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next week, we'll leave you with the Agora Underground girl. Where's she at here on the outro? Okay, well, laissez-faire, ladies and gentlemen.
Peace.
Ciao.
You have been listening to the Agora Underground. Tune in next week for more. Laissez-faire, comrades.